All right, Lions and Pistons fans, let's just talk a little something real quick about the miscues or mistakes of either franchise, and we talk about the 2021 season. And for the Lions, we pretty much predominantly would say that the season is over. For the 20 for season 20, and but we talk about how they can proceed to go into the next season, starting with new additions and roster upgrades and key positions and so forth. How can they actually go from being in the doghouse to be on top as a contender? All right, and then we're gonna switch over to the Pistons and like how why they are and why they will be and what they can do also to solidify that. All right, okay. Well, with the Lions, of course, we know that they are looking for a general manager and excuse me, and they are looking for a head coach and so forth. And it's basically going to be it's not going to be a rebuild, but it's more so it's going to be a rebuild. And the reason why I say that it will be versus that it won't be is because you're talking about the upper management or the upper management positions. Is they're going to pretty much restruct the team in their image, and if that may entail that some players may not be here or a lot of players may be here. It depends if they fit the new regime vision. Now, I went on the record by saying this team has four anchored players that you could build off of. I believe it was four. And depending on what they're going to do going forward, that may be less than, and which will actually put them in a more of a deficit of the rebuild or actually being contenders. The four that I used before was Trey Flowers, Frank Ragnow, Kenny Galladay, and I don't know. I don't know who the fourth one was. I don't know if it was Jelani Tavai. I I want to say yes, but no. Let's go with this one. We got Trey Flowers, Frank Ragnow, uh, and I want to say T.J. Hawkinson. All right, now on the defense, all I see is one piece, and that's Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers, in my opinion, is they arguably their best defensive player, and I'm not really talk about like statistics per se, more so just impact. Now, is he as dominant as I would say when Ndamukong Suh was here as a rookie and so forth? His first, well, I don't know how long he was here. Maybe he was here what 3 years? Was he here? I mean, was he? Or is Trey Flowers as dominant as that? No, he is not. However, you can build off of him. For what he does, he can actually give you single coverage or double coverage. So with that, that's a factor. Or I can build off of that. So what I'm saying like this, with when it comes to my anchors, whoever that I place as an anchor, whoever we're going to bring in and as a complement to this anchor, they're going to have to be on the same level as this player that we're bringing in, or actually we're greater, or be some more superior in talent and IQ and leadership and so forth, right? So when it comes to the Lions, it's a tough sale because the Lions make this one mistake. They overpay or they pay for talent versus developing it. You drafted Ndamukong Suh, which was a high steep of a price because there was no rookie scale. So between himself, Calvin Johnson, and Matthew Stafford, They was behind the eight ball in the financial department. So there was nothing really much they can do. And then I believe the following year they drafted Nick Fairley, and he was on the top rookie scale too as well. So that was a little change. I don't know how much more, but or how much of, but he was up there too. So now you really don't have anything, but you put all your money that you that you're not using for the rookies because there's a rookie scale. You put all your money into your free agents. The problem with the free agent that they have here, or the problem with the decision of that, is that the ones that brought them here is no longer here. So now it becomes the question: are the players that they brought in here, are they adaptable? The reason why I would say it's a complete failure, and what is because how they fired Quinn and Patricia. They should have never fired them in the middle of the season. They should have fired them at the end of the season or before the season started, before they was able to do any free agency, or before they was able to do any moves. But of course, nobody. Well, I guess you could look at it like, well, they didn't know if their record was going to start off to what it was. You're not firing them based upon their record. If you are, then they should have been fired after the first season. So you're not firing them based upon that. You're firing them based upon what? Because the fans want them fired, or what do they call it? I don't want to call it the stock people, but who is that? Season ticket holders. There it is. They are requesting a change, right? So you fire based upon that. Okay. Well, only thing about that is, along with the mandate that they got to make it to the playoffs, all that is not necessary if it's done correctly. What I mean by it's done correctly, at the end of the first season, if they was really legit about far as like winning, if they was really legitimate about the construct of winning, they would have fired Quinn and Patricia after their first season when it was what 3 or 5 and whatever the record it was. You would have fired them then. And the fact that y'all let it get to the third season and don't let them complete the season is, see, the reason why I say you let it complete it, because then you could have a clean slate of removing a lot of people that was a part of that regime. Now, you may go in with this new regime if you can't give him a clean slate, which is, once again, it's the Lions' history. They never do a clean sweep. It's always carryovers. But the carryovers are going to bring that bad taste of what once was, particularly if you're trying to do a clean slate. It is a can that they continue to kick for years after years after years. They never, okay, let's say, for example, when they had Matt Millen in office, when they got rid of him, they should got rid of everybody that was a part of him. Everybody. Mayhew, everybody, all the way down. Everybody. No, instead they decided to hire in-house because that was a safer choice. He was familiar with Mayhew, he was familiar with whatever, or he could have sold him, whatever. He could have actually been legit. The only problem is you need a clean slate. You need something that's going to be separated from the history of what it was. So say, for example, if they brought in Rick Smith, right? If they brought in him, what ties do we have to the organization here? I don't want nobody to have any ties here. The reason why I don't want anybody with any ties here is because, in fact, I need them to be I need them to be free, to be as inventive as possible. I don't need anything to hold them back. And the Lions' history has always held back those who are upper management through some way or some form. Either of it's spending, out of his creativity, out of his letting go of tradition, either is moving forward with anything. It's always been something that will hold them back to the past. And this has been 50 years. So with that being said, until they can cut ties to and give somebody literally a clean slate. Okay, let's say, for example, once again, when Quinn was here, when he first got the job, he still had carryovers from Cardwell. And Cardwell and who was the general manager then? Was it Mayhew? From Mayhew. He still had carryovers. And So we could say, well, Quinn and Patricia, when he hired Patricia, Quinn had Cardwell for I believe 2 seasons or a season. I forgot. I don't know. I don't recall. But his guy wasn't in place. If Patricia was available then or was available at the time that they carried on for Cardwell, it could have been a different turn. It could have been a different results. Who knows? But the problem is the time that they was able to get the time that they was able to give Quinn. Well, how can I say it? The opportunity that Quinn and Patricia had to upgrade the roster was like 2 years too late. They were supposed to have been able to do that when they first got here. But that's the problem with this organization. Quinn had to clean up the mess from Mayhew. Now, whoever's coming in office is going to have to clean up the mess from Quinn. And it's a constant thing. Because Mayhew had to clean up the mess from Millen. Millen had to clean up the mess from the previous regime. And it was like of losing from Barry Sanders. Like from Barry Sanders' era, when it wasn't able to, Dwayne Font's era, whoever was the general manager there, wasn't able to complete what they were starting and building up to go into the NFC title game. They wasn't able to complete that. So the next GM, which is Matt Millen, comes in. He has to tear all that down because you got to build it up in his image because he's a first-time guy and he doesn't know how to basically build. There's a lot of people that don't know how to build from the ground up. There's a lot of people that believe that they believe within themselves they are one or two pieces away from taking it over the top. So he's not a guy. Matt Miller wasn't a guy that could build one or two pieces to take it over the top. He was a guy that had to build it in his image. So he tore it all down. But even in the midst of that, he didn't get all his guys because there was people in the office that was carryovers from the previous regime that was suggesting that they should get this player, that player, and it didn't go out the way that he wanted. So he's here longer than he's supposed to have been. And with that being said, what he accumulated over the time that he was here was carried over to Mayhew. Mayhew did a somewhat of a serviceable job, but it was kind of limited based upon what he had to clean up from the previous one. And so he is let go. He's not able to finish what he started. So it's passed on to the next one, which is Quinn. So Quinn has to clean out all the things that Millen and Mayhew have caused in the upper management so that he can do his job. And by the time Quinn gets the point to do his job, he's out of office. Now, it's interesting how it works. Right now, the team is in a worse situation than it was before Quinn got here. Because whoever's the general manager, if he can't add one or two pieces here to what's already established, you're looking at another rebuild. Like Quinn, he had to clean out everything. What Quinn had to do to clean out everything what Miller and Mayhew did, it's the same thing with this new general manager going to have to be able to do. And he's going to have to be able to do it very quickly, very swiftly. But at the same time, he has to do it without patience. Because the fans there's going to be so much, not pressure, there's going to be so much of expectation of results instantly, and he's got to think on the fly. This is why I say Rick Smith is going to be the job. He's going to be the guy. The reason why I say Rick Smith is going to be the guy is because simple fact, not because he's done it in Houston or he may have done it some other places. Those are good credentials to have. But he is the guy that, let me see, how can I say it? You always need a cleaner, a guy who can clean up a job, before you can actually build it up in your image. And there's always that they will call that the one that does the dirty work. He's a guy that can get the dirty work done. Now either he's going to do it according to what he did in Houston. Either he's going to add a few pieces to what he have to work with, or he's going to be able to do some shrewding, trading, whatever, and giving some players out of here and possibly, and that may take 3 years. It depends. It may take 2 years. 2 years. I won't say 3. I would say it takes 2 years. Excuse me. The only problem with that is there's never enough time in the city of Detroit for this Lions organization for any person to do their job. It's not enough time. It's not enough time. One thing, the owner go by the fans. They go by the fans too much. Well, the fans is what? They're the money. I get it. That because the upper management don't really have a foresight of a vision for this franchise. So they're basically at the brim or at the whim, I should say, at the whim of the fan. If the fan demands this type of player to be here, whatever we get them, they will try to do whatever they can to get it because they want the fans to be happy so they can be in the seats because it's money. I get it. But as long as it's working like that, as long as the organization is working off the fans, they will always be behind. If you can't have a vision or play someone with a vision, there's no reason for the fans to support. It's amazing though how they have done it for 50 years that the fans are not just loyal. I just believe the fans don't have nothing else to do. They may say they do, but if they did, they wouldn't support them losing. And what I mean by that, they continue to watch it. They continue to make podcasts about it, and myself is included. And they will continue to be a part of whatever it is if they have something else to do. And the only reason why, if I'm more to clear the air about myself, I'm not a fan of the Lions. I am a fan of rebuilding teams. And I absolutely enjoy what Quinn and Patricia were doing. What basically what Quinn was doing. Patricia hung them out to dry. And I believe Quinn was a good GM. He just had the wrong head coach. That's the thing about it. He was a first-time GM, and he was learning on the job, and he brought a first-time coach that's learning on the job. So you got a problem that's inevitable not to, it can't help but to happen. A disaster can't help but to happen in that case because it got too much uncertainty from your quarterback situation to nothing was in place here. Nothing is in place. And the fans could say, well, the team was 9-7, but there was nothing about that 9-7 team that you can build off of. The fans will say, we could supposed to build off the 9-7 and that's what they was trying to do, but they couldn't find what they was looking for. They couldn't find it. No one really wants to come here and be the leader of this franchise. That's why I say you don't pay for it. When they sign Trey Flowers, I'm okay with the Trey Flowers signing overall, but I'm not okay for going to go get free agents and bringing them here for them to be the leaders. I'm not okay with that. That's not how the Detroit mantra works, unless you got something to build off of. Like, okay, if I were to use the Tigers, for example, when they signed, or was it they signed or they traded for Pudge Rodriguez? No, I think they signed him. And he was like the first free agent that they had after those losing seasons, and then they were like the bottom of the barrel. So it was like a huge deal. And after him, they got, Ordonez and different other things, pieces start coming in. But the reason why that can work with the Tigers, because they have won before. It's not you're not going to an organization as a free agent like, well, they don't have nothing going for them. The Lions have nothing going. Only thing they have going for them is Barry Sanders. That's the only thing they have going for them. You can't say Calvin Johnson. You can't say Ndamukong Suh. You can't say Matthew Stafford. You can't say anything. You can't say Chris Spielman. You can't say anybody. The only thing you could say is Barry Sanders. That's the only thing they have going for them in the Lions organization from the Super Bowl era all the way up to this point. That's the only thing you could say. So to win a free agent to come over here, you're gonna have to overpay him. So that's why I'm not really upset with the moves that Quinn did. The only problem is they wasn't able to complete it. The same thing with Schwartz. He was not able to complete it. The same thing with Cardwell. They wasn't able to complete it. It's Cardwell couldn't complete what he had to because in fact there was no who was I think it was Mayhew. There was no more way to maneuver. There was cash strap, and with the ties of three of their best players. They couldn't make any more moves. They couldn't do anything. And if they were to lose again, you're still going to be like, okay, you would be a high draft pick, but you still got too much money tied into it, so you'll not be able to do it, but you will probably get the piece that will put you over the top for years to come. But the fans wasn't going to do it, or the ticket holders, the season ticket holders weren't going to allow it. So it was like it was a weird situation, and at the same time, Mayhew missed on a lot of picks, as much as like he won with the you could say Stafford, Calvin Johnson, and Ndamukong Suh. You could say he won with those, but it's too many of the second round, third rounds, and later rounds that he actually misfired on. So this is why I could say, well, Quinn did actually an excellent job because even when they say Jelani Tavai is a bust, I still say he's misused. He is misused and he is not a bust. He's a player. That player does not fall off. Like, it's almost like what they said about Decker. Decker, when he first got here his first season as a rookie, he was pretty good. He gets hurt, then they say he's washed up. Now all of a sudden they're saying that he's one of the top left tackles. Not the fans, but and not locally, but the mainstream. They basically say he's a good left tackle. So if he's falling off from his rookie year, but he's back playing good now, so what happened? He didn't really fall off. Just like the same thing about Jelani Tavai. He didn't fall off. It's too much to overcome that he just can't focus on football right now. And because it's too much uncertainty with this organization, it's too many changes. It's too much going on. And it's not a good environment for any player to play. But the fans say, we need you to be professional because you're being paid for it. But it's just like you on your job. If everything is constantly changing, like, okay, you've been working a job for you work in this position for like so long, and then all of a sudden they change it, but they don't change it. They change it when the person they come in to change it they tore down what you did. So you got to redo what you did just to keep in the process of changing. It's a deal. That don't mean that it can't be done. It just takes time. The only thing about it is you may not have time because your job is on the line. So they want you to be impulsive, to learn on the fly. So that's why I vote for any person that's going to be as a general manager or the head coach. They're going to have to be innovative. They're going to have to be very creative and instinctively. It's like it's who they are. They can think on the fly because they're going to need it here because there's so much uncertainty with this organization dealing with from the quarterback. They don't know what they want to do with that. Once again, we are in this situation. They don't know what they want to do with the quarterback. If they should keep him, let him go. It has been this way, arguably, we could say for the past what? Every quarterback that came here with Matthew Stafford has dealt with this, with the exception of the one who drafted him. Who was that was here when he drafted? Was that Martz? Schwartz? Or was that before Schwartz? I think that was before. When it was where it go, whoever inherited him was one thing, but everybody after that was like tied to it. Well, do you keep him? Don't keep him. Do you keep him? Don't keep him. Once again, it's the carryover. This organization can never go forward because it's a carryover. They're still doing business how they done it back with Bobby Lane. It's still one of the same. They haven't changed. They may have modified some things, but they haven't changed the cusp of how they run in this organization. So if they hypothetically, if they give the keys to Rick Smith, Smith, if they give the keys to him as a general manager, they're going to have to get out of his way. They can't restrict them because of this, or whatever the reason. They got to let him do his job. I would say I would endorse him as a good candidate as much as I would, probably even more so, looking into him, and more so than I would Peyton Manning. The reason why I say Peyton Manning because he has no ties. But the reason why I say hire Jim Harbaugh because he's been in this situation before. He went to the 49ers after whoever was there, and he basically added an offseason to the team, and it was ready to go. Now, the team that inherited, they was maybe in the playoffs, maybe not in the playoffs. I don't know how it works. But he added that Alden Smith draft. And next, Alden Smith playing next to Justin, I think it's Justin Smith. And all of a sudden, their defense took off. So they took off. The next, they ended up in the Super Bowl. So that's why I endorse Jim Harbaugh. But why I would endorse Peyton Manning? Because he has no ties here. He has nothing here. He's a clean slate. And not just that, I believe that the people that is here, as well as the people that he will bring in, will honestly respect him without having a clean slate. I mean, by him having a clean slate. So, but if you get somebody such as Rick Smith, he has a reputation for rebuilding and everything and so forth. But the only thing about that is you're going to have to get out of his way. You can't restrict. Like if you want to let go of, even though I understand that the new owner said that whoever's in office, they want to keep Stafford, they keep him, so forth. You're gonna have to let him do what he believes is best for this team. And the only thing about it is going to upset some fans what he's going to do or what he has to do based upon what the previous regime have put him in a position that he has to do. That's the problem with you letting how they once again. I'm not. I'm not. I was not in fan. I'm not in favor of them firing Quinn and Patricia, not because it's to save face, because I was actually their supporters, but it's like if you don't allow them to finish what they started, you can't help but it can't help but to be a continuous of a failure, unless you get that one guy that can come in instantly and build off what's been established. But if people are clearly saying that there's no talent here, he has to rebuild all that. But I disagree. I believe this team is an offseason away. So I believe that Smith, I want to keep saying Rick Smith. Oh, the basketball player. Okay. By Rick Smith, he, I believe you get out of his way, he can go ahead and build off of it. He can instantly build. They don't have much to go with. They really don't have a lot of draft capital, but I believe that he can, by his respect throughout the league and so forth, and people willing to deal with him, he can make some moves. Even if it comes at a cost of a Matthew Stafford, even if it comes at a cost or of a Kenny Galladay, and you may be stuck with the Halapalooty Vitae deal, the Trey Flower deal, the Jamie Collins deal. I don't believe none of them is a problem. I believe this offensive line with Halapalooty Vitae. I believe he is a part of the offensive line. He was never healed. He was never whatever, and it's a shuffle. This offensive line has been shuffling. When one of the key guys get hurt, they bring in another guy, and then the other guy who comes off of being hurt, he comes back in, but another guy gets hurt, and it's a constant shuffling. So it's all about continuity. You got to know who you're playing it with. Ragnar is the centerpiece. This offensive line goes as he goes. So you have a somewhat of a complementary piece next to him in Jonah Jackson. Whether you want to play him on the left or the right side, you got a complementary piece to him. And I believe whichever way you want to go with Jonah, if you take him on the left, you got a complementary piece to left with Decker. If you place him onto the right, you don't know what you have because you haven't played. He haven't played with. Now all of a sudden I'm tongue tied. Look, oh, for sure, Big V, Halapalooty Vitae. He haven't played with him on a consistent basis, so they really got to know each other, tangibles and so forth, and how to complement each other. And then at the same time, he also played with Crosby. So what do you do with that? It's just too much uncertainty. There's too much uncertainty on this team, from the general manager all the way down. There's too much uncertainty. This is where the owner has to be very creative. How to sell it to the team, not sell it to the team, sell it to the fans, sell it to the season ticket holders and so forth and all that. You got to be able to sell it to them in a very creative way that they're not really focused on the team per se, but they're focused on, as far as like what they're selling them. And then you have to be bringing a general manager that is very creative, innovative, that they can go ahead and I want to say hit the ground running with what you already have. This team is not bad at all. And if you get that, if Rick is said, like, once again, if Rick Smith is that guy, then you let him do what he does. You let him do what he does and don't hold back. Now, your season ticket holders may be upset. Your fans, your loyal fans may be upset, but you have to let him do what he's going to do, because you got nothing to work with based upon how they did it with the previous regime. Once again, the new guy has to be able to carry the dead weight or know how to handle the dead weight. And he has proven that he can do that, what he did with the Houston Texans and so forth, by particularly being an expansion team. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and I really enjoyed it, about the breakdown of Rick Smith. And And he was telling me, sure, telling some things that I've never known about the guy because I'm not really into the front office per se. But he was telling some things about him, like how he took a franchise. I mean, a new franchise, which I didn't, at the time, I didn't know when he was the general manager that there was really a new franchise. And he took it to as high as he could before he had to leave because of personal reasons, but he took it from nothing to something. But he was talking about how his draft picks that he was making, how he was hitting more than he was missing. You're gonna miss some, but he was the ones he was hitting, he was getting pro bowlers, he was getting all pros, he was getting guys that possibly could be Hall of Famers. He was getting, foundational pieces. But then you get the next regime to come in and pretty much trying to wipe that down and tear it down, and it's a deal. But I really support him as a candidate. I don't know much about anybody else, but from what I was hearing about him, there's actually two people was endorsing him, and the video that I saw particularly on him was telling how he changed the franchise around. It was a new franchise actually in the Texans, and how he was able to bring it from the ground, and each year he was building. So the fans is going to have to let him do that if we do that here because it's such a unusual situation here because he's got to clean up what Quinn wasn't able to finish. What Quinn did, though, I would say this: what Quinn did, he didn't put this team in a deficit. It could be if you get the guy that got to tear it down and redo it. If you get a guy in here that actually can go in the off season and add a few pieces with some, of course, some shrewd maneuvering, they can go ahead and actually hit the ground running next year. Where the Lions organization went wrong at, after the first year, when Patricia was the record that he had, they should have fired him then. I'm a Quinn and Patricia guy, but I'm in terms of an organization, putting aside the supporter and all that good stuff, how they did it wrong. And how they always do, in which it becomes a carryover. The wrong is something they don't correct until it's too late, and it becomes a carryover. They never get rid of it when it can. Now, I was a fan. I was a supporter saying like, well, don't get rid of them. Let them finish what they started. And that would, of course, that allowed them to finish the end of the year. Now, if they allowed them to finish till the end of the year, I think we'd have more of a clean slate of handling it. But then at the same time, it's almost like you don't carry over to this year. If you got two bad seasons, you let them go. But I'm a huge supporter of letting a guy have 3 seasons. But it's like it's still the team is tied. Somehow it wasn't able to progress. I don't know how it's able to win. I mean, how this organization is able to win based upon how they do things. They just do it backwards. But in the sense of doing it backwards, they think they're inventive of doing it forward. But it catches up to them. It's like using cheap material to sell more product. So it may get you something in the beginning of it, but the long term, the longevity, you won't have it because your credibility will be, of course, will definitely be in question. So your sales that if you was once making, millions of dollars, that's going to go down because people are going to no longer support it because it's going to be the next company is going to do what you did, but they're going to do it with a greater quality. So they're going to get the ones that you had based upon your lack of quality. So this is what the Lions have always done. And I mean, the organization has always done. They didn't let Jim Schwartz finish. They couldn't let Jim Caldwell finish. And they didn't let Bob Quinn and Patricia finish. It's a continuous thing. But yet and still, you let Matt Miller have 8 seasons of it. This is what I don't understand. Each Quinn, let me say it this way. Schwartz, Cardwell, and Patricia were close to taking something different. I mean, doing something different than his organization has never seen before. Now, Perkins said, like, well, this team was getting worse up under Patricia. I disagree. This team was far more competitive with Patricia than it was without it. People say like, no, they're playing harder. Well, because they're playing a little bit looser, don't mean they're playing any better. Because you're still losing. Still got the same team. Still losing. When I saw when they was being coached up under Patricia, they was leading in predominantly the games. They were leading these games. He just didn't have another gear to close it out. That's what you call inexperience. And he didn't have another gear. Most coaches have to go somewhere else to learn that gear. That's what Jim Schwartz did with Philadelphia, and that's what Bill Belichick did from Cleveland to New England. They had, they learned their gear. Unfortunately, they learned how to do it here, but they haven't have enough time to go into that second gear. Like when you talk about Tony Dungy, what he did with Tampa Bay, I think he was there for a nice stint. And even if you want to say with a lot of these coaches, they was able to stick around with the organization. It does help when the organization was already somewhat established before they got there. So like for Mike Tomlin, that's my guy. What Mike Tomlin is able to do with Pittsburgh, so like if they were to have a losing season, he comes back the next year with a few adjustments, a few upgrades, and they're able to get back into contention. There's something to go off of. Mike Tomlin is not building it from the ground up. Bill Cowher was there before he was. And before Bill Cowher, there was someone there before he was. And the Pittsburgh's organization has been built off of winning for years. Lions got nothing. They have absolutely nothing. And every time it gets going, they tear it down. The Wayne Fontes era was one game away from going to the Super Bowl, and they tore it all down. So we're talking about, well, if Quinn is saying Patricia is not good, not Patricia. If Quinn is saying 9-7 is not good enough, they wasn't one game away from the Super Bowl. 9-7 is not good enough. So all that has to be tore down. But when you look at what Wayne Fontes was at, he was actually one game away from the Super Bowl, and they tore it down. That's why I don't understand. They didn't allow him to continue to build. They froze it. But you're one game away from the Super Bowl. You're not like 9-7. No, you're one game away from the Super Bowl. And they tore it down. So when they talk about they shouldn't have hired Patricia, they shouldn't have got rid of Caldwell because of the 9-7. No, forgive me. When they was griping upon Quinn when he made a statement about 9-7 is not good enough. 9-7 is not good enough. And he didn't set a standard for the new people to come. No, 9-7 is just not good enough, period. And it shouldn't be good enough for the Lions for the Lions fans, because you were actually one game away from the Super Bowl in 91. So 97 shouldn't be. You was there. You was there at the top. One game away. So I believe with that, there was one offseason away of investing into that team to get over the top. They was there. You were one game away. And they tore it down. That's why I there's no way I can support this team. And somebody would say, well, you got to give the new owner an opportunity to be different and so forth. I can't, because she's a carryover. It has to be clean. It has to be a clean slate. Unless you can build from the gutter on out. And when it ever is done, they don't allow them to complete it. They tear it down. Because the fans get involved. They allow the fans to make the decision for them. You don't fire Wayne Fontes because what? He couldn't get a win or something like that, but he the one got you to one game away from the Super Bowl. All you need to do is build off of that. Sign your players that got you there, and sign some more players or draft some more players and get there. Isn't it the same thing what Jimmy Johnson was able to do with the Dallas Cowboys? Because the Lions and the Cowboys was neck to neck at that time. Maybe Detroit was probably a little step ahead. But then what Jimmy Johnson did the next following offseason,
He reloaded. Went the offseason, got this player. I think he brought in Charles Haley, whatever, from the 49ers. And he that next draft, they're there. They took that next step. Remember, the Lions beat the Cowboys, I believe, in a wild card that year. That offseason, Jimmy Johnson restocked. Got some more, got a hit that offseason, brought a few free agents, and excuse me, and that draft, that got him over the top. That got him over the top. And that's all what the Lions needed to do in 91. They was one offseason away, but what they did was they closed the checkbook. They closed it. And a lot of their key players, they let go. And then they try to bring a couple players in. I believe that's when they switched over to the Pat Swillings and everything else. And you trade you trade your number one draft pick for Pat Swilling to New Orleans. And I believe that's when New Orleans draft Willie Rolfe, the tackle. Whew, man, I don't even want to talk about that. But once again, they went to a different direction. Instead of building off of it, like say for example, if you fire Quinn and Patricia, which I say is bad, that was a terrible thing to do. Even if their record is what it is, fans got to understand what they have to what you have to overcome in this organization. It's not just strictly football. You're dealing with those that don't want to get out the way. And somebody says, give the new owner an opportunity to do things differently. It's almost impossible for it to be done. And you literally can't be, in every which way it comes, an opportunity to be. You can't be like the previous ones. You just got to deny it. So if the new general manager, they're going to be very innovative, and they're going to come with these radical ideas. You got to get out the way, because more likely the ideas and stuff they're going to come with is going to be against what you've done. If you're going to look for somebody that's going to keep it going how it's already established, it's not going to work. The Lions will never win. They can't. Even with the Rod Wood, all that has to be tore down. That has to go. Because it's how it's been done. Why would you want to keep? That's the whole point why I really enjoyed Quinn, because he cleaned house up in the upper management for those people that was up there in the scouting department, the financial department, all that good stuff. He cleaned all that out. If you're not going to allow your guy to go ahead and do everything, then there's no way I would want to come here, because it can't just be just football. There's too much politics behind it. The fans could say like, well, these other franchises, well, they in 2 years they're in contention. Like, well, those franchises, let's say for example, we're talking about Kansas City. Before Andy Reid was there, they was okay, right? But they was nowhere near winning the Super Bowl, right? So how was he able to come over to the franchise? Like, well, that franchise wasn't a losing franchise. They may have some years where they was losing, but you're going back to far as Neil Smith and Dale Carters and the Christian Okoyes. And I'm missing somebody. Derek Thomas. They have been winning. They have something there, but they've been in playoffs, because playoffs and stuff like that. But they never maybe went to the mountaintop. But you got something to build off of. When Quinn got here, you could say 9-7, but that even with that 9-7, okay, you got Glover Quinn, DeAndre Levy. That changed everything when he fell off. Darius Slay. Now, that's the problem when I say why they fired Cardwell. They didn't allow him to finish, because the fans were saying it's not good enough. He's not a good coach. But he has that gear to establish it. You needed someone that had a gear that can go to that has enough that done what Cardwell has done, but actually could take it to a next gear. When they got in Patricia, which they hired the wrong guy, I enjoyed it because of the fact I like what he brought here, but he didn't have Patricia. His only fault was why he kept getting in his own way. He didn't have another gear. Everything that he learned in New England, he applied here, but he didn't know anything else. So it wasn't battle tested until he got here. It actually worked because you're leading most of the games. Now somebody could say that's offense. Well, not really, because a lot of the games the offense wasn't getting the ball first, so they would stop and they would put points on the board. The fact is, he didn't have another gear to close out the game, so that constantly kept him in his own way. Okay, if somebody asks me, does he deserve to be fired? Well, okay, all right, you fire him. But how they did it wrong. They did it too late. And when they did fire him, they fired him at the wrong time of the season. All it does is bring more uncertainty to a lot of players on your team or a lot of whatever in this organization. So now everybody's scrambling, right? So now you got players that you're still evaluating to see if they're going to be foundational piece. You don't really know what they got because of under the circumstances that they got, that they're in. Like if somebody was saying Jelani Tavai is a bust, he's not a bust. Is the circumstances is this really in disarray? You really don't know what you have. Now, if you get a coach that everybody respects or a general manager that everybody respects, you're gonna see those guys that you thought was bust. They won't be. This is how you get the Calvel noise that goes to the New England Patriots and all of a sudden is a bona fide star. This is how you get our cast offs go to another team, whatever, because something is established. And they can just do what they do. They don't have this is why okay. When they made the fucks about the flux, that's what I was trying to say. When they gave the flux about not Darius Slay, but Quandre Diggs picking up his game and balling out in Seattle. Well, all he have to do when you go into Seattle, it's already established. The culture is already established. All you have to do is be plugged and play. So that's all he has to do. So when you go into an organization, let's say like if Jared Davis is released and Pittsburgh picks him up, he's a bona fide all pro. I mean, not all pro, but he's a pro bowler instantly because he don't have to do anything but just his job why they brought him there because the system is already intact. There is nothing here. So now you asking a new general manager or a new coach to establish something that never got a chance to be established from the previous and even for the previous before that, And so if the fans is not going to be patient, if the owner's not going to be patient based upon what the fans is impatience, it's going to be a problem. It's constantly, this has been going on for 50 years. This self same deal, it started back in, let's say, if the Fords, like to say the Fords, like most successful season was 91, right? You were one game away from the Super Bowl. They should have been allowed to, the management should have been allowed to continue. You're one game away. One game away. And I'm going to say what happened was they closed the checkbook because it's a rule. If it's more easier to lose and have a good revenue than it actually is to win, and that you have to keep paying your personnel over and over. And I believe that have been their mantra so long. And so that's why I can't see how this organization could win because when it comes to the point of winning, they stop it. But they hold on to the losing so long that it is, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know how you can do it here. I would say this, and I will close it out with the Lions talk that the Quinn and Patricia era was one off season away. I won't say I was in the idea of drafting Isaiah Simmons. I did because I saw if they would have add this player and add this player with that. Let's say, for example, the first and second round. My guy was, I think his name was Zach Bond. I think that's his name. That was my guy, and he was available in the second round. I was saying like, okay, if you get Isaiah Simmons and him, you could be so versatile that you don't put so much strain on Trey Flowers and whoever else is on that defensive line, whatever. You can be so versatile, but at the same time, I had a coach that only knows one gear. What I'm saying is everything that he learned as a defensive coordinator wasn't battle tested on his own without Bill Belichick giving him adjustments on during the process of the game. So he hasn't been on his own before, so it wasn't really battle tested. So there's not another gear to Patricia. That's why he kept getting in his own way. He would have a lead, but he would lose it because he didn't have another gear. He didn't have nobody to basically, like a Bill Belichick, to say, okay, this is what we're going to do next, to sustain it. He didn't have anything. So the Isaiah Simmons pick would have been wasted. And the problem with it is somebody would say, like, well, he could probably be good for the next regime. Possibly, maybe. But he would look the same as Jelani Tavai, because the results would have been the same. Now, somebody said like Okudah is the wrong pick because he didn't come out, he didn't come out blazing. He's actually the pick because you don't have to bank on him to be the pick this year. Look with all the turmoil and everything that happened, you don't need him to be a bona fide star this year. But next year, the complementary pieces that they're going to bring into it, he can be a bona fide star. On top of the experience that he learned, that he don't have to relearn. On top of the fact that he may be in a more competent direction of leadership. But that's not a knock towards Patricia. It's just saying as they may find not a competent, more of accomplished coach next year that they will have another gear. So like if their team is following them and they get a lead going into the second half, whatever, going to the fourth quarter, they can sustain it because they have another gear because they have had the experience of whatever that they know have been tested. That's the only knock that I have against Patricia is that he didn't have another gear. And the only thing that I had against Bob Quinn, actually, it's nothing. I don't disagree with anything that he did. I don't. I don't disagree with anything that he did. Somebody said like the Jeff Okudah is the wrong. Nah, I disagree. I believe Isaac Simmons would have been a good fit this coming draft, not last year. This coming draft. Because Okudah is going to be a beast in year 2 with Amari Warrior and so forth. Now, of course, it all depends what kind of coaches you get here and so forth. And if that coach is very innovative, creative, and so forth, and they have gears, or where they have respectability, accountability, and so forth. Patricia didn't have any of that. All he had, that's the reason why he had to stick to his guns, how he did it, because he didn't have anything else. What he learned was battle tested. He had his big brother, if you will, to back him up or to cover him up, let's say that way, cover him up in New England. With the wealth of knowledge that Bill Belichick have learned, even before Patricia got there, he's able to, like, when Patricia left, he's able to keep going because he knows too much. So whoever that he got brought in as a defensive coordinator, he can actually take what he learned with Patricia or even before Patricia and apply it to it. That's what makes Bill Belichick so good, or how he kept the train going without Patricia. It's not that the fact is that his system changed. He just knows too much. The only thing with Patricia, his system was never battle tested till he got here. And he didn't have another gear. But there's nothing that Quinn did that I disagree with. People say like, well, the Amendola deal, or the Trey Flowers deal or Jamie Collins deal. All that will work if this team was more competent. One thing I would have said, how the offense would have worked if they'd have took the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hand. That actually would have increased his longevity in actually NFL. But by they making him keep throwing the ball, he keep getting cracked rib. Help me out with this. Does a quarterback get a crack rib or a broken hand by running the ball? Particularly when the run game is actually working. So once again, I don't know if that was a Patricia deal or a Bevel deal. I don't know how it worked. I don't know. But if you're going to keep Stafford, take the ball out of his hand and make him be more so a possession quarterback, or I don't want to say possession, but more so what's the word I'm looking for? Position situations quarterback, where it's basically that's basically what Cardwell was trying to do. And see that's interesting. The team that Patricia inherited was made for Cardwell. The team that Patricia inherited for the 3 years was made for Cardwell. And the team that Cardwell inherited was made for Patricia. If you'd have put Cardwell with this team, they would have succeeded. They would have well succeeded. But if you and like I said, if you brought a hungry young team that doesn't know anything up under Patricia, like you did for Cardwell and everything, they would have went a lot further. Or I could say even Schwartz. I wouldn't say Cardwell. I would say Schwartz. If that Schwartz team that they was building together over to Cardwell, yeah, that would have been good for Patricia. Not the cocky Patricia, but the Patricia that was able to just be. And I don't think Patricia necessarily changed his ways from year 1 and 2 to year 3, as much as you don't really know what you have. You don't know who with you, who's not with you. But he was more relaxed because he had more of his guys with him. Now, only thing about it is he don't have all his guys with him. And by him being limited of what he knows, he's constantly going to put people in the wrong position. He's going to overthink a lot of things. He's going to overdo a lot of things because whatever that he does know wasn't tested. So you become to like second guess yourself. You become smarter. You get in your own way. So that's my rant about them. But going over to the Pistons, I was a huge fan of keeping Derrick Rose, but because I wanted Derrick Rose to be like the Chauncey Billups, Isaiah Thomas guy. I don't think Derrick Rose is that guy. I don't think you want to be that guy. And I think he's in a situation where he can sit back and do nothing here. And that's why I'm not a fan of keeping him here. My vote on keeping him here changed. I needed a Chauncey Billups, Isaiah Thomas guy. And I thought he was a mixture of both. I don't think he is. I think he's a guy that's like, well, I can sit back and I just do what I want. Like everybody has done when it came to to the Pistons or the Lions organization. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to take it seriously here. And I don't care for that. I trade them and go get some capital and everything else. And I'll let I'll let DeLon Wright and Killian Hayes, and along with what was that, Saban Lee? I think he's the backup, a point guard. I'll let them figure it out. I don't need a Derrick Rose here. And I definitely don't need a Blake Griffin here. They're actually holding up everything because they're not Piston DNA. Derrick Rose, I believe he has the Piston DNA in him. I don't think he wants to do it anymore. I don't think he wants to be here anymore. So it becomes a comfortable spot. Let me collect and put my feet up. I don't care for that. I need you to be my bona fide leader. If you're the vet, you're arguably what, one or two or second best player on the team. I need you to be a bona fide leader. No, not leader as in like I'm taking a person up under my wing. I don't need that kind of a leader. I need a leader that guy saying like, well, we're not losing tonight, and I'm gonna make everybody else better around me. I need that kind of leader. Otherwise, you don't need to be here. That's just my personal opinion. Because I'm saying he should be starting. I'm not starting Killian Hayes because you can ruin him at the same time. You could give him the opportunity to play and learn his take his lumps and all that good stuff, but you could ruin him at the same time. So if it depends, if they're talking about they can win, if they want to win, that's what I'm saying about my leader of Derrick Rose. Like losing is not an option. So I don't think he knows what's going on with his organization, how they're going to do it, what's going to be done. If he agrees with it or don't agree with it, I think it's too much comfort right now. And I don't see this team winning with Blake Griffin and particularly Blake Griffin being in his start lineup. If he gets hurt and somebody takes a spot, let's say Sekou takes a spot or Jeremy Grant, whoever takes a spot and they are balling out, don't let him come back because he's healthy and that he's a starter by default. I'm not a fan of him starting, period. He, like I said, he put me in mind of Chris Webber. Chris Webber is a heck of a talent. You know, and they both are a heck of a talents in their prime. But if the team is moving forward, it's like when Chris Webber got injured the year that Sacramento was playing good. And I don't know who they had in his place. I know it wasn't Funderburk. I don't know who it was that took his place. They was actually doing pretty well. They was doing really, really well. And they gave him his spot by default, and that chemistry just broke down. It just broke down. Because you got to alter everything. You know, it's a team game. So if it's altered, you basically asking everybody to adjust to something that's got to fit it, got to find his own rhythm. So it's nah. Move on from Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose. Move on from both of them. Move on from both of them. Like right now. I'd rather take my losses with the rookies and the young players than with them because I don't care about what they've done in their past or what they possibly can do. They don't matter to me anymore. I wanted Derrick Rose to be my leader like Chauncey Billups was when he got here. But that was a situation that I'm going to go back to the Lions for 1 second. And it's actually going to be a comparison to the Pistons. When the Pistons brought in Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace, say those two, right? Why it worked for both of those guys? Because they really didn't have nothing to go off of. Chauncey Billups, the best he had was how he was in college. And I think he was a top 3 pick coming out that draft. But he got bounced around a lot. So Detroit was more so a fortunate situation versus an opportunity to get over. It was a fortunate situation for him because he was getting bounced around so much and needed an opportunity that needed him, that he can actually showcase who he is. So it worked. The same thing that happened with Ben Wallace. But when you sign a guy like Trey Flowers is a guy that he really don't need that kind of, he's not hungry. You know what I mean? He's accomplished what he did with New England. They went to Super Bowls. So that's one thing about it. It's like when the Lions bring in free agents, they don't bring in players that's like hungry for an opportunity. You know, because they bring in guys who already done it somewhere else. But that guy is going to compare where they done it from to a place who have never done it at all. So they're going to take their foot off the gas. And when they take their foot off the gas, the expectations of them actually taking the next level in their game doesn't show up, and they become like a bust. And not a bust. It's just the fact that the foundations here in comparison to where they came from is totally two different things. How it's ran, how it's done. Here, you could do whatever you want. You could put, instead of clean, like as a kid, your parents tell you to clean up your room. And you got two types of kids. You got the kid that actually can thoroughly clean it up, where everything is folded, everything is in the closet, the bed is made, and things is, and so forth, and it's pretty much to a T. The parent can come to the room and do a room check and see if everything is in order, and they'll be like, well done. Or you can get that child that basically can say out of sight, out of mind, throw it in the closet, throw it up under the bed, whatever else, and hey, it's clean. But if that parent were to do that check and see what's in the closet up under the bed, it would be a failed check. So when most free agents come here, they go like, I could just throw it up under the bed, whatever else, and they just happy to have me here because they don't have anything going. The last thing they had something going was Barry Sanders, 91. You're one game away from the Super Bowl. Since then, they don't have anything. Not enough for any free agent to come to respect, unless you got a coach that they have to respect. Now, Trey Flowers and all the rest of them know how Quinn Patricia Arthur operate and everything else. So it's like, well, it's like they told them, like, when you get here, it's not like New England, because New England was a well-oiled machine. Bill Belichick would have, by the time that any one of those players that came here got to New England, it was too refined in New England. It was done too well. So if you get them to come over here with the attitude, regardless that they got the coach here, everything else is not ran the same way. You're talking about in New England, like over there, everything is done like in a very precise way that everybody does their job. Not on the field, off the field, meeting, everything. Here, that's not the case. That's not the case. From players to coaches to coordinators to whatever, everybody does not do their job. So it makes it harder for the next person, because here in Detroit, everybody does not have to do their job. You can always kick your foot up, and relax and collect a check, because Detroit is it became like a desperate city. Detroit was can I say renowned or known for being innovative. They lost that swagger a long time ago. What was the last thing that Detroit done that was innovative? So the average fan, or not average fan, but the average free agent that you get here, if you gotta pay a superstar to be or all pro to be here, don't do it. The best thing they need to go from is getting guys off the street or guys that were cut off another team, waived from another team or something like that. Of course, you got your draft. And if you do bring in any free agents, you're not bringing the top free agents. And when you do get them, you're not overpaying them. So the best thing you can do is basically work with a limited budget. The reason why I say that, because I'm going back to how the Pistons work with the going to work crew. Bill Davidson basically is like tied up the spending string. He tied that up, like, nah, that's not going to happen. But at the same time, based upon what the previous, I want to say was that, I don't know who was the general manager before Joe Dumars took over. They pretty much put him in a bind with the contracts of Jerry Stackhouse and the Eric Montrose and the different things. They didn't have enough trade capital. So Joe Dumars had to work with limited stuff. Same thing with Ed Stefanski had to do, as well as whoever was the guy along with them. I don't know if that was Malik Rose or whoever it was. They had to work with limited stuff, but I love how they did it. They were able to accumulate talent off a limited supply. That's when you have something good working. When you're able to accumulate something off a limited supply. The only problem with them, they probably only had one gear. And that's where you go to the next phase and you go get to Troy Weaver, who has another gear, because he pretty much did what they did when he was with Oklahoma. And so therefore he got another gear so he can go build off what they did, take these pieces and add these pieces. Now he may not have the next gear to take these pieces what he had because he never had the opportunity to do it, or he may do it here. That's the one thing I would say what the Lions don't have. Every time they have that opportunity to do it, they tear it down. So my rant is officially over. Lions and Pistons fans, I salute.